feel free to come up to the podium.
I'd like to mention some additional remarks about the summarization of the meetings at the end, but for right now, as far as moving the precinct over, there are a couple considerations that concern me. Number one, with the combination of at-large seats and the move of that precinct, you end up with the possibility of 9 board members from Montgomery County at some point, depending on how population goes. Now, you cannot take into account population projections. That was stated in the Spring Ford case when you're looking at this sort of thing. However, I think that when you look back, I was involved, in fact, I drew up the boundaries for your Region 2 in 1996, working with Sultanic and the board at that time, and we see what's happened there when we have a cross-county district. I want to make sure, if possible, that we retain a Berks County flavor, because we do have different taxation CLRs. We do have also different attitudes in general from whom we put on the board, as you can tell from who is opposing the expensive high school project and who is not. So what I would say is, back in '96, and specifically that was based on '94 data, we had, with the plan approved by the court at that time, over 3,000 people in Region 1, more than Region 3. And we did not find that a concern. If you look in the case law and pertinent statutes, you will find that up to a 16% difference and or other percent differences are acceptable as judged by the courts. And so to shift a precinct now to achieve a 1.5% improvement in population inequity, because you still end up with 1,800 more voters now in Region 1 than you did before. It's not as bad as it was before, obviously, 1.5% improvement, but are you going to have to redo that sometime in the future and shuttle that particular precinct back and forth? I think really it's not warranted, and given that it is across the county line, it is not apples and apples.
Yeah, my name's Mark Trubinski, and I took a look at your census data from 2010 and looked to see if I could come up with a different plan that was more equitable than your current proposal A. And I was able to come up with 2 different proposals that actually are more equitable than your proposal A. The first one, you would have, in Region 1, you'd have 32.46%, Region 2, 34.16, and Region 3, 33.38, and these would be contiguous regions. And in the second one, I have 33.89 in Region 1, 32.74 in Region 2, and 33.38 in Region 3. All these proposals do have one region that's still Berks County, one region that's a mixture of the two, and one region that's exclusive Montgomery County.
Well, I think Mrs. Hartford will address the questions after we hear them all.
Okay. Linda Curry. Rather than make myself lengthy, a lot of what the first speaker said, I'm in agreement with. Again, to me, regional is very important. And as I had stated at a few of the meetings, I don't feel that the numbers warrant making this dramatic change as they had back in the 90s. And we're only allowed to talk about this and not the at-large, or is that coming?
You'll have a chance for that.
Okay. All right, then I'll reserve my comments to them.
Okay. Any other comments?
Larry Farmer. I would like to say that with the current, looking at the trends that we've been seeing with the way the population growth has been going, the current plan that you have proposed is something that will become inevitable. The growth is happening on the east, or particularly the southeast side of the district. In order to maintain equity as you're required to by law, you're going to have to be doing the exact kind of shifting that you're proposing right now. I think it's a reasonable solution with respect to maintaining regions and maintaining equity. I think being able to, making a minor change in, you're improving inequity, but you're preserving a certain amount of it. But yet, I do think that it makes sense to consider previous population trends so that you can preserve you can keep the regions as equitable as possible over the 10-year period until we have the requirement to open this up again and look at it again. So I think the proposal is reasonable. I think it makes sense. And I think, again, given current trends, this will be probably the first of many that will happen over the next few decades.
Any other comments? Dr. Fabian, would you like to summarize and clarify what we heard? Oh, I'm sorry.
Were you not there?
Yes, you do.
I was just looking at the proposal, and there's like 1,800 difference in numbers on your proposal A for the different regions versus 948 in another region. I just wondered why the big difference was.
Can you explain?
Oh, on region 2, you have 15,410, correct?
Yes.
And on 3, you have 14,462. So that's a difference of 948. But if you use region 1 versus region 3, there's a difference of 1,800, 1,799, 1,800. I don't call that very close.
Okay, thank you.
Because we can't go by what we project, we have to go what is.
Right. Any other comments?
If you want us to wait,
If you have a comment about the region
Yeah.
equalization, you may say it now.
yes, I've attended some of the township and borough meetings.
We can't hear.
Still not on, okay, I'm sorry. I've attended some meetings and I've listened to the opposition try to put fear into the people by saying that all the board members are going to come from Montgomery County. Nobody mentions, if you want to play with those numbers, you could say, well, 7 can come from Berks County. We're one school district. I don't understand I kind of know what's behind this, but the thing about it is, and folks, I don't care what region you're in, you're going to be able to vote for 5 board members instead of 3, and that's the majority. Before, I had to sit in Region 1 and vote for 3 board members, and whatever the other 6 did, I just had to sit there and take it. Now we're getting a chance to vote for the majority, and people will stand out there and say, well, we don't want anybody from Montgomery County in Region 1, it's got nothing to do with it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, Dr. Lee, you can summarize.
I will do my best to summarize. Ruth, I'd like, before I try to attempt to summarize the first part of your comment, could you please restate, because I got kind of confused with, you had a couple considerations that you were bringing forward, but I didn't hear, I only heard one. So can you restate what your couple considerations were in the first part your conversation. But before you do that, I will summarize the rest of what you said. You were a part of the 1996 boundary drawing of Region 2, and that your opinion was that we need to make sure that we maintain a Berks County flavor. That in 1996 there was a plan approved by the court that did not find a concern with population variance. And we are currently, in your comments, attempting to shift a precinct to achieve a 1.5% population readjustment. So I didn't catch the intent of the first part of your comment.
The other thing I wanted to mention, and I must point out, I have nothing against Region 1, or Precinct 1 in Douglas Montgomery. I have a number of friends there, in fact, and actually they think the way I do. But the concern is they are not taxed on the same common level ratio as Berks County. The whole Montgomery County side of the district is not. Now, for school district taxes, I am learning discrepant things. The STEB says the county CLR governs. PDE says a different CLR is used, which I saw in the spreadsheets in one of the cappers. I'm still trying to figure out why there's a discrepancy, and in particular why the numbers for all of Berks County do not end up giving the CLR that the STEB issues. So I will let you know what I find out. But that is the primary concern I have. And as I mentioned in court, that is something that when I learned about this last fall, that was something that explained maybe why property taxes have been an interest of ours in Berks for years, since the 90s, and they have not been that important to voters in the Montgomery County side of the district, judging by whom you elect.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Ruth. The second gentleman, Mark, had brought forward two different examples of proposals that would equalize the region percentages. Specifically, did not make any comments on what that entailed, but did have examples from his own investigation of how we could achieve that equalization. Linda Curry then came to the microphone and agreed with the statements made by Ruth in the beginning. And her comments centered around the fact that the regional is very important, and that based on what she is seeing in the numbers, that she does not believe that that warrants a change. And then Larry came to the microphone and commented that looking at trends with the current plan, it is inevitable that we are going to have southeast growth, and in order to maintain equity, we need to do the exact thing that is being proposed. Making minor improvements to inequity makes sense, and that we need to continue to consider population trends until the new population data is received in the future, and then we can make determinations based on that new data. And that is my summary.
All right.
Please, if I did not capture your statements correctly, please let me know.
Okay. So I will attempt to respond to them. Mr. Crossley, Mrs. Hartford, feel free to join me. To address the county concerns raised by Ms. Baker, as we heard, it is true that with this proposed equalization plan combined with the hybrid model, that it is potentially possible that 9 board members could come from Montgomery County. It is also potentially possible that 7 board members can come from Berks County. So I just wanted to make that point. Also, as we heard in court, county lines are not to be considered in this matter. Only voting precinct boundaries. And also the flavor of Berks County, I think we addressed that by looking at the characteristics of the region that we are proposing to move to Region 1. In that if you, I drove around those roads and I can't tell when I cross the county line. And I looked at the census data and I see that that piece of Douglas, Montgomery County is less populated than Region 1 on average. It is also less than, it also has a lower per capita income than the average of the Region 1. So it seems like it's also has the same look and feel. So I think we addressed that when we made our considerations and made our recommendations. With respect to not severe enough to make a change now, the concerns about that, and Mrs. Diroff saying that the numbers aren't close. The numbers certainly are closer than they are today. The numbers that were recommended, if you look at the differences, you'll see that those numbers are less in the proposal than they are now. And I know that we legally in the court, we can't refer to the trends, but they are unmistakable. You can argue with how big the trend would be, but if you look over time, it's unmistakable. When you're talking about an area that grew 3% versus 45%, or some of the municipalities in Berks County actually shrank. So it's not something that we can ignore in our minds. And so not only are we making the variation among the regions better, slight as it is, but we're reversing it so that as those population trends take effect, the differences get even smaller. Today, as the population trends take effect, the differences are getting bigger. I would, let's see, I thank Mr. Farmer for his comments, and thank you for your involvement in our committee. Let's see, I think the only thing I might not have addressed is Mark Trabinsky. Am I saying your last name right?
Close enough.
Okay. I would be very interested in seeing what those proposals are, but I do want to say too, I don't know what they are, so I don't know. I just want to say some of the other things that we did consider. We didn't consider wholesale changes because we were thinking of the voter experience. So we didn't draw a blank slate. We said, what can we do to our current to change it and have the minimal impact to the voter? But that's not to say that we couldn't. But what we can't do by looking at other cases is we cannot make a proposal that impacts a board member in a seat. We can't make a proposal that would kick a board member off of the board. So I'd be very interested in seeing the details of your presentation, of your findings. But
Okay.
would you share them with us? Would you like to share them with us now?
Yeah.
Make sure they're small.
Make sure they're tiny.
Yeah.
Okay, in the first proposal, I
Okay.
had Douglas Berks, Boyertown, Cobrickdale, this is actually the second one, and Earl in Region 1. In Region 2, I had Valley, Bechtelsville, Washington, Douglas, Montgomery, 1, 2, 4, and New Hanover 1 in Region 2. And in Region 3, I had Douglas, Montgomery 3, New Hanover 3 and 2, and Upper Frederick 1 in Region 3.
Where was New Hanover 1 and 4?
New Hanover 1 is in Region 2.
Okay. Oh, there is no 4, okay. And that was contiguous. Do you have an extra copy?
Oh, you can have this copy.
Oh, that would be great.
Is it small?
It's very small, Thank you.
Real tiny.
Make her strain her eyes.
I don't know why there's a road back here.
Okay. Oh, wow.
To waste the
Okay,
money.
thanks for sharing that. We'll take that into consideration.
Well, here was the other proposal.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
In Region 1, we had Valley, Bechtelsville, Boyertown, Coverdale, and Washington. In Region 2, we had Douglas Burks, Earl, Douglas Montgomery 1, 2, 4, and New Hanover 1. And in Region 3, Douglas Montgomery 3, New Hanover 2 and 3, and Upper Frederick 1.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. I don't know if I wanna- I'm just gonna take
Does
a,
this take into consideration the least impact to the current regions?
no, they changed the current regions quite a bit. And
And that would change basically the districts and how they're used to being as the regions that they are. They would be in different school district regions then.
district regions. Uh-huh. Yeah,
But I think that was important to the committee to maintain the region 1, 2, and 3 as they were now for the voters,
right.
and having the least amount of impact on where voters voted and also what region they were in.
That's three people's opinion.
Yes. Okay, what I think I'll do, since we really don't have a chance to digest this here, when we end tonight and ask if we're reaffirming our commitment, we'll do so tentatively because we can change our mind after the meeting. And if we still agree that we want to move forward, we'll say pending review of this. And if any of the committee members want to change our minds about bringing it forward, we can do so. And also, this will be made available to the board members as well.
Mrs. Usavich, what I'd like to recommend is that the committee moves forward with whatever their tentative recommendation is, and that we will provide a summary to the board prior to their action or at the regular meeting on this recommendation to make sure that there aren't other considerations that the board as a whole will want to make.
Okay. Go ahead, John.
I made several notes of our presentations tonight, and I'm first a few words, but reorganization is not cast in stone. You know, if we don't do it this week, we'll do it next week, or we'll do it the week after that, but it's something that's going to have to, in all fairness, to keep the all of our taxpayers equal opportunity to be represented on the board. So I've heard comments, and like Mr. Nichols said about going to these meetings and asking the borough officers to support or to make a comment on this plan is like ask the person who is already represented if they want to take a cut in pay. You know, they would be foolish to say yes. The second one is we spend a lot of time on the cultural differences here. And that's one of the reasons that the township we moved in is a very rural township. We have divided into rural, urban, and town, borough categories. And I think with the cultural activity up in the New Hanover there, that is appropriate for the Region 1 part. And I know the court doesn't allow us to consider growth, but when New Hanover went up, what, 30% in the last 10 years?
Hanover was 45.
And last, we'd be foolish to turn our back on the fact that it may happen. So therefore, when I voted for this thing, I was voting because I like the cultural difference, cultural similarities, I should say. I like the, I realize the fact that it's not going to be cast in stone, and somebody down the road will want to redo it again. And that's the basic differences that I have. Oh, wait, the last thing. On his proposal, I think, from what I've heard so quickly, is that we are losing the cultural differences in the regions by the choices. You know, like Earl is very, very rural, and then he went into Boyertown, and
By Mr. Trubinsky.
yeah. So I think that is mathematically viable, but culturally, I think that's a problem. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any other comments? Mrs. Deeroff?
Unless I can add, I just went back, you said the numbers were better. Before there was a difference of 1211 and 832, and now we're at 1799 and 948, so I think the numbers kind of changed. And second of all, when you gave your history, we did have a committee in place. You forgot to mention that in 2010 that was put in place to go over these numbers, and that committee reported back that they felt the numbers should stay the same. And I think you were on that committee, and you were the only one that disagreed on the committee. The other two said, so it was ironic how you got to be chair this time.
Well, this is a two-year fighter.
Well, I'll comment on that. I was the chair on the first committee too, and I went by the, and being the facilitator, I went by the majority recommendation, which was then brought to the board, and that recommendation failed. So the board decided to reconvene a committee. I think that they, I hope that if they made me the chair because of my facilitation skills. And I do think that I went into this, I will say I went into this with an open mind. I listened, and I do believe this committee reflected not what we thought, but what we heard.
I just wanted to mention, because half the people here didn't know that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comment? Then, let's see, Mr. Crossley and Mrs. Hartford, I think this agenda item number 5, I'm going to ask if we are confirming our commitment to this recommendation and to take it forward to the board at the next board meeting, I believe.
I will support it.
I would.
And I'll say yes to pending a look at what Mr. Trubinsky has presented to us. Okay, thank you very much. Then we'll move to agenda item number 6. So following the same format, and I think the item, let's see what slide do we want to show for this. I think it's the slide 8. That's it. So the committee recommendation, you heard how we got to that recommendation. There's a couple people in the audience who were a part of that process, a few people. And I would like to just state that our recommendation was to move from a pure 3-region model to a hybrid model where there are two representatives from each region and 3 at-large representatives. So I welcome anyone to come again to the microphone and share any comments you might have on that.
My name is Jill Denon, and I was part of the first committee that met, I guess we started last October. And when I came to the committee meeting, I was very strongly in favor of an at-large voting model. I ended at the end being the one to actually recommend the 3 at-large and the 2 reps per region, because I felt one of our goals was community unity, and there seemed to be such a division between the people who wanted the regions to remain the same and the people who were very vocal about at-large, that I felt at the time the best thing for our community was to offer a hybrid. And I thought then, and I think now, that it is a very fair and equitable model for our community. And a couple of reasons that I kind of am in favor of the hybrid model and even at large is, number one, as Mr. Nichols had said, we are one school district. And the goal of the school district is to make decisions with the best interest of the students in mind. As a matter of fact, the mission is to enable all students to succeed in a changing world. And our community is changing. The demographics are changing. The socioeconomics of the community is changing. So we have to change with that. So that was number one. Number two, and I made this point in a committee meeting way back in October, is that a school district and a region is very different than a legislative district. There was a lot of comments by people who really wanted to have regions, and some of the comments were, well, you know, I'd like to vote for so-and-so, and they don't represent me in the state legislature, so I can't vote for them, or I would like to vote for this person. So therefore, when you're in a district, that's why we have regions. You can't vote for some people you want because they're not running in your region. Too bad. Well, when I listened to that comment and I thought about it, I thought, well, we're not legislative districts. We're a school district. And the one thing that separates us from a legislative district is that every single person on the 9-person board is voting for the best interest of one school district. It's not like I represent Region 2, and Boyertown Elementary School and Junior High West is in my region, so I'm going to be sitting on the board, and I'm going to try to get dollars, and I'm going to think about public policy and decisions that benefit Boyertown Elementary School and Boyertown Junior High West. That is not how a school district functions. That is not how a board functions. The point of the board is to make decisions for all of the school districts in the district, not for the district that's in your region. So just to reiterate, the reps, state representatives, and when you have legislative districts and regions, the reason that they do go and redistrict a lot of times is because they want to get the most population, because they're competing for dollars for their district. We're not competing against each other for dollars for our district. We're trying to do what's the best for our students and for our taxpayers. And the third is, we wanted to encourage community unity, and I think that the model does contribute to community unity, and I think that in the end, all the voters will feel that they're being represented equally. And one of the other comments I wanted to address that people said in the committee when we were going to hybrid, and a lot of people were really against it, and I thought about this because I do think fairness to all people in the district is important, and people were saying that, you know, if we have to run at large, this is a huge district. It's 100 square miles. And if I want to be a representative, a district board of director, it's going to really cost me a lot of money. And therefore, those people who really want to run and don't have the financial resources would be out of the equation, and that wouldn't be fair. And that is one thing that really concerned me, because I think that is a legitimate issue, that we don't want the most affluent or the people who have money to spend and therefore don't care about their taxes going up being on the school board because, well, you know, my family has a lot of money and I want, you know, Susie and Johnny to have the nicest school and the smallest classroom, so I don't care if my taxes go up. This isn't that kind of district and we can't afford to have that. We have to have people who represent the whole entire district. And I think since I've been living in Boyertown for 20 years, I think the voters have done a very good job of doing that. So I don't think that if we go at large, even if we were at large completely, you would be marginalized from running because elections have changed. Number one, you don't have to spend all of your own money. You can have a committee and you can have people give money to you. Number two, the way of campaigning has completely changed. With technology and electronics and Facebook, you don't have to spend the kind of money that say you would have to spend in a state legislative election. It's not, you're not talking about thousands and thousands of dollars. So there is a way that you can run, even if economically it's difficult for you. If people back you and they would like you on the school board, you can definitely find ways and people to contribute to your campaign. Of course, there's a lot more paperwork you have to fill out, but you can certainly do it. So that was the other point I wanted to make. And just finally, to sum up, I do think that when you're talking about fairness, I don't think that if we stayed with regions, yes, we're not equalizing the population and that's not good. I still think an at-large is best, but I think in terms of reaching out to people in the community who don't feel the same way we do, the 3 at-large and the 2 regions is a very, very fair and equitable way to go. Thank you.
With all due respect, there is natural selection that will occur, as I have shown in the tables I gave this board after the court action this spring. The districts who are at large in high proportion have their people on the board as a majority from the most well-to-do and the most populous municipalities in the district. You have the data. You have my detailed backup. I don't know how you can refute that. When someone is running for election, in particular, when you have to run across 97 point some square miles, I wonder how many people you folks from Montgomery County know in my township, and I will tell you, I don't know that many in your townships where you live. It's just the way it is. To run on name recognition only is not a good way to elect school board members. It is best to be able to know something about the person from knowing people who know him in his part of the community or her. And when you have to have a committee to run and all the paperwork, you also have outside influence. We have had before the teachers union support one of our school board candidates. We saw it on the actual forms that were filed with the state. We also had people for the American Way in here messing around in our elections. When you have that sort of situation where you have to run across the whole district, you cannot do it on a shoestring anymore. You will end up with more well-to-do people who can afford to run. Not everybody, and I would emphasize this, not everybody at all is on the internet. My generation, much more so, but certainly not our seniors. I've found that out to my surprise how few are. And so, my concern is this. If you look at what has happened in the other districts in Berks County, not one district in excess of 60-some square miles in size has at-large representation. Some as low as 30-some square miles have regional representation. There is no hybrid district in Berks, and the hybrid district that was referenced in the court action this spring by the district, when the judge required this to be done as a compromise up there, the 3 at-large members all come from the most populous municipality. The reason they're not from the wealthiest is because it had a very small population, I think. And so in our district, you'd be looking at New Hanover and Douglas Montgomery as the most populous municipalities. I don't think that's a risk that we should need to take to do an experiment here when you have the entire county's data, which I gave you in the spring, so you would know what I was basing my conclusions on. We don't need to reinvent that down here and be yet one more district that is governed by Montgomery County. No offense to you, but you all have champagne tastes much more than my folks do in Earl.
Beer bottle pop.
Hello, my name is John Matthews. I'm from Region 3, former school board director. When I ran at my own expense, and it was expensive for me as an individual. I didn't get any backing from any committees, but I know it's possible that people with an agenda will form a committee and back someone to get their wishes under consideration or supported. So having the experience behind me, I am very much against at-large representation. I think the region is much better, and considering the vast compensation that you school board members get, I don't see how we can expect an individual to run at large, finance a campaign, and spend all the time to cover the 100 square miles. That's too much. Unless we're going to do something about spreading the wealth. We've all heard that expression before. So I'm very much against putting an additional burden on an individual citizen who is dedicated to education. I compliment the teachers who are dedicated to education, but individual citizens should not be expected to carry that burden either for the campaign contacts or the expense. Thank you very much.
My name is Andrew Economopoulos, and I'd like to speak against the current proposal. I look at your list of priorities and those that you developed through focus groups, from most important, very important, etc. And although they are admirable, and we would love to have a community that's unified, the election process does not produce a unified result. You have winners and you have losers. And so by its nature, it is a contest in a sense. Unity comes from the board members who work together in cooperation to come through, that's coming through the best use. And so instead of looking at this as trying to change the system to presumably unify the body, I would say that the current system as it stands is a good system of checks and balances. Second point on your priority list, number 2, under most important, voters feel they should be being represented. In my review of the professional and scholarly work of at-large positions, most would agree at-large positions are at a detriment to a minority group. Typically, the research is directed towards African Americans or of that nature, usually racial. I would ask you to really think about the minority group in Boyertown, in which we have senior citizens and non-senior citizens. When you look at the demographics between Montgomery County and Berks County, there's a larger proportion of senior citizens and families that have less children versus Montgomery County. And so because of that potential inequity, if you have an at-large position, you're going to have an electorate who is going to be more persuaded to elect members of the board who potentially will lead the school district into taking advantage of their ability to put on programming that maybe is in their best interest, but not necessarily the best interest of the community. I understand education, I'm in it. Teachers want to teach, that's where the education takes place. But there's so much other dynamics that goes on at the finance level that certainly parents who have children are more likely to say, yes, I would love these amenities for my children and have other people pay for it. So although, my last point, I'm sorry, under very important, can vote for anyone you wish, which is Mr. Nichols' point. That is great if you are in the majority, and it's not that great if you're in the minority. And if you propose an at-large, you will have a majority that will pick the at-large. And my argument is that it's likely to come from, right now, the Montgomery County side. So with that in mind, you can say, I can choose anybody. The only way you're going to be able to support that type of situation is, as we have heard, is to develop a campaign fund in which you have to get yourself out there. You have to get yourself known. You have to get yourself sharing your viewpoints and hopefully convince people that you're the right candidate. But I don't think it makes sense at this point to make the change. Thank you.
I attended all of the committee meetings, and actually, I was present when we established the criteria that would define a good election plan model. Again, I am against this proposal, as many of you are aware. And when we developed the criteria, I don't feel that this proposal supports some of the ones that became not most important, but basically less important. And the ones that I felt were important were candidates are known by all voters. I cannot see how that would be possible for a candidate in an at-large model. Community feels close constituency relationship. I still can't see how that would be possible in this model. I mean, look at your state representatives, look at your congressmen in DC. They're so far removed from us. I mean, how many times were you able to pick a phone up and call them and just talk to them right away? Most times you get an aide. So I don't see in this model that close constituency relationship. Candidates not discouraged from running. Again, you're talking about almost 100 square miles. I know what it costs me to run in Region 3. It would be impossible to fund a campaign myself in an at-large model. And I really, my whole point of running was to not be beholden to special interests, that I was there for my constituents. And I feel if I would decide to run again someday, I probably would have to have a PAC if we use this model. Does not encourage candidates from just one geographic area or county. This will encourage that. And there's a lot of important issues that may come about in the future that maybe some aren't thinking about. If you have 9 members from one county, and I am from Montgomery County, what happens if you decide to close the school in Berks County and you have 9 Montgomery County board members and they're all in agreement? Where is the reputation? Where is the representation from Berks County? And that was a big concern of mine. So, trying to think, I didn't write everything down, but I just, I really would hope you'd reconsider. It's, a big decision. I know it was based on projections, but who knows? In Washington Township, you may have a huge development that brings in 700 or 1,000 homes, which could add to that precinct, make the population larger. I mean, you can't keep moving precincts back and forth. like that. It's not fair to voters. I just hope you reconsider. In 7 years, or less than 7 years, a board will be sitting here and re-examining census data again. Maybe things will be completely different. Maybe it'll be like it was in the 90s. But I just don't feel at this point that percentage warrants. And again, the state doesn't give you a percentage. They don't say it must be within, 3% or 5%. They don't give you that, so. Okay. Oh, and the other thing was, I really wish you would have had this presentation online sooner. I don't know why you didn't, but I guess 8 months ago. It's been about 8 months. I've been checking, so I didn't see it on there until just recently. This presentation and your summary.
Yes, I'll add, but we just did.
No, you did add it, but it took you about 8 months.
We decided to put all the ad hoc committee things on the website for people. So all those materials were put up a couple months ago, yeah.
Yeah, and you also changed, because when I went on today to print this out, you didn't have the 217 voting.
Right, that's the December presentation that's there now, and we'll post this update.
Okay, but I printed one out today that didn't have the year 2017 on it, so I don't know when you
That's
had.
the December presentation.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to say something.
Sure. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm Tara Renninger. I'm kind of new to all this. I've been away for 20 years.
Oh, hi, Tara.
And
Welcome
I just ask that you keep in mind, I want to give an example of what's happening. Private sector workers are shrinking. Public sector workers are booming. Now, public sector workers pay taxes. They have money to pay taxes, but every dollar that a public sector worker spends comes out of a private sector worker's pocket. So you may have people earning $80,000, $100,000 a year in the public sector, like our esteemed legislators, but every dollar that they get comes out of the pockets of private sector workers like my husband, who has worked all his life and worked hard. Now, this is kind of general, it doesn't really have to, but we are affected greatly by any, I'm really nervous, I'm sorry, by any decision made by a board member. So I just ask that whatever you decide, whatever you're voting on, please keep that in mind, because we are shrinking at an alarming rate. Public sector is blossoming, especially with health care. So you need to realize that your tax base comes from private sector, which is shrinking, which will disappear. Probably at some point, everybody will be a public worker. I don't know how that's going to pan out. But please keep that in mind, no matter what decision you make, building project, voting, because these are the people that are affected by all of it. And I can tell you, my standard of living, since I stood in this room last time, has fallen and fallen and fallen. And with healthcare coming, these are things that a lot of public workers don't have to deal with.
True.
We'll lose over half of my husband's pay between school taxes, taxes out of his pay, and health care. So he works how long? I don't have specifics. But whatever you decide, please keep that in mind. And I live in Berks County, so try to, if you're not in that situation, please at least try to consider those people. Thank you. Now,
I have been coming to these board meetings since I found out about.
Do you mind going to the
I can
microphone?
now, can't you hear me? My kids can. Okay, I have been coming to these school board meetings since I actually found out about that you're gonna tear down Boyertown
It's
High
Ad
School.
Hoc.
And I live across the street from the high school. Now, I think that the board went in to building a new high school, making the $55 million too fast, and look where we're at. I think that we've already put enough on the community, on the residents, that they don't need something like this being taken away from them either. They have a right to have their vote. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay, Chris Nyman. I have a couple things. I have a letter from Coverdale Township that says they would like things to stay the way they are. I attended these meetings. Nothing negative, nothing against anybody. And I am running for Boyertown School Board. And I'll tell you why I'm running. Yes, I'm running in Region 1. I am there to represent the people of Region 1, but I am voting for every child in this community, what is best for them. But I am representing the people of Berks County, where I am in that region. I don't think it's negative or anything else towards anybody out there. We people in Berks County need to have a right to say, and that's basically what Coverdale Township commissioners want us to have. They want representation from us, not from Montgomery County to tell us what to do. Yes, we are there. I agree. We are there for every child, every student in that district. But me personally, running from Region 1, I am running for the people of my community, and there are a lot of them out here. I represent those people. I come back saying, we need to cut tax dollars because they can't afford it anymore. And I can tell you, I work at a very nice place. However, I can also tell you that our customers have gone down. Our work is not as frequent as it used to be. I'm not working the overtime I did years ago. And I'm sure that there's more people in this community that aren't getting those salaries, those wages to keep paying for things. That's why we need to keep this the way it's going. We need to have the 3 regions. We need 3 representatives from each region, not going at large, not changing our region. We need to stay the way we are. Also, does anybody realize out there in the community that we've spent approximately $24,000 last year from August 21st through the end of 2013 in February, approximately $24,000 on this case.
Oh my God.
Do we also know that as of May 14th of this year, we started spending money again for our lawyer, and we now approximately have $450 in costs already this year. We're not here for each other, we're here for the students. But let's keep Region 1 as a Berks County community.
Keep going, Kathy.
Anything else?
Larry Farmer again. First of all, I guess I'd like to start off by saying that I do concur with everything that Mrs. Denton said earlier. I think that was all very good points she made. One of the other things that I heard in the room when we were discussing the models and whatnot is when we're out at events in the community and doing things together, and we're not sitting there worrying about, well, what region are you in, or what region are you in, what county are you in, what, you know, we're all part of the community. We're all there supporting our kids. You know, so I really think that this notion of regions is really, has a lot of artifice to it. That, you know, we're creating distinctions that really aren't truly there. And I guess the other thing I'm a little concerned about with some of the other comments that I've just heard is with respect to again, representation and whatnot. I mean, I think we're all supposed to be supporting democratic processes here, right? So, majority rules. That's how democracy works.
So what are you saying?
Majority rules, there's more people here. Ms. Baker, you can make another comment.
So what are you saying, Mr. Plummer?
If I could mention, we are a constitutional republic as a country.
Amen.
There's a reason
Amen.
for
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
Wake up.
Democracy rules is mob rule. That's what I am personally concerned about. No offense to the Montgomery County people on this board, it's a fact of life. You have more income, you have more population. That is what naturally happens when you look at what happens across Berks County. It is well and good to vote for more than 3 people if the candidates are not pre-selected to represent a higher income, higher population demographic. And that's the concern I have, that what will happen here from what happened elsewhere in Berks County. You only need to look at the table I prepared. You can check the details of it. It's all available on the internet. Okay? The other thing that I might mention, it is not a laughing matter to not have local representation. That is why we do have township supervisors, auditors, constables, etc., that are voted for locally, because that way you have some chance of getting to know the people that you're voting for and judging their character to make sure that you actually want to support them. You can't do that well when you're looking at candidates that come from wherever within the district of our 46,000 residents, where you don't have any history with any of those people.
Thank you, Ruth.
Any other comments from the board? Yes, Ruth?
I don't know, I keep thinking I'm missing something. I went over the 210 population by regions. And then I looked at the chart you proposed. That is the proposal A with the check mark, correct?
Yeah.
So I guess I'm confused of why in 2010 we had 14,115 in Region 1. Now you're proposing 16,261. But when you get down to Region 3, in 2010, that was 16,608, and now you're proposing 14,460. You just flipped the two. I don't understand why you would do that, and then say this is better, this is more equal. I guess I
Mathematically, it is equal. It is more equal, because if you subtract the difference between the two, the range has been reduced. It's flipped, but also improved. It is more equal, which is what we're asking to do by law, to make it as equal as possible. I think you need to do the math, but it's better. It shows on there the variance.
Okay, I guess what I'm getting at, it's by very, very minute percent. And to spend $25,000 to prove your point, and now you're gonna do it again.
25,000.
I don't understand
Take
why
it out of
we
her
would.
pocketbook.
We just lost $1.2 million on a building project.
And that's only if they don't come back for more money.
Thank you, Ruth. Anybody else? Joe?
Yeah, you know, when I sit here on the board with the rest of,
Sit here on the board with the rest of my board members, I'm not concerned about where they're from. I'm concerned about what they bring to the board. It's not about Berks County and Montgomery County like we keep hearing here. They're telling you that there's nobody in Berks County that's qualified to be on the board. They're all want to be from Montgomery County. That's what they're telling you. The resolution that's been circulated has 600 names on it, mostly from Earl Township, by the way. The population in our school district is 47,000. So I'll support the majority of them who aren't here.
You're not listening to anything.
You're not listening to what you're saying. You don't care.
He's not listening to anything
Yes.
anybody says.
I realize as I'm sitting here that one thing is very true about things in school districts and education. And that is any time you embark upon a change, you will have people that are going to be very dissatisfied, very resistant, and you'll also have people that are willing to take a chance and move forward and look at things in a different light, and willing to listen and hear and try and come to grips with things. And then you'll have the ones that sit in the middle of the road. I have to tell you that I sit here, I'm personally offended by some of the comments that have been made about Montgomery County people. I don't think it's fair to be doing that type of thing in a school district like this. As some people have stated, we're all one district. This is Boyertown Area School District. I've worked very hard to try and become a member of this community over the last 30 years, and it's not easy. And so when people get up and make comments about that, I worked really hard on this board for 12 years. I really care about the students in this district. I care about this district and the people that spend so many hours and time keeping our buildings in shape, trying to get the best programs for our kids. And I'm very proud of the boards that I've worked on because we have been very frugal in terms of the money. I know that when I look at other school districts and I look at their tax base, I talk to my friends and what they pay, we are very lucky. The taxes may not be done the proper way. Things need to change. But it's the way that we have to educate our young people. And they are our most valuable commodities. And we really need to look at what is best for our area. And I think that if I have the opportunity to look at 5 people that I can choose to represent me on the board, and they're the ones that are going to have an impact on my taxes, that's a little better than 3 people. And if I really care about my community, I'm going to find out who those people are. I'm going to know what they represent. If I'm invested in my community, in my township supervisor's your job, well, I'm going to find out who they are and what they're doing. So I do take offense to the comments that have been made here. I don't think it's fair. I think open minds are very, very important. I've heard, I really get offended when I hear some of the comments from the audience when people are talking. A lot of work was put into this thing, and to have people make snide remarks about somebody that took their valuable time to put together a presentation to try and share information with you, I don't think that's very nice. And I think apologies need to be
And I don't need anybody talking down to me, because I'm in the audience. You want us to be here, don't talk down to your audience.
And hand out paperwork that you can read.
I don't appreciate you sitting there talking down to me as I'm sitting here listening to you.
I sat and listened to you. I'm sorry.
I have not said anything. But you're sitting there at your board and you're talking down to this audience.
I did not intend to put me on my...
Well, you did, ma'am. And you did.
If I might interject, I'd like to suggest that we refocus.
Yeah, I think
we
so.
We have a lot of passion in the room, and passion is good, and differences of opinion need to be heard. And the attempt that we have made as a district this evening to hold this meeting when this meeting is not required, I think is a testament to the fact that we want, and I as superintendent and this board want to hear the differences of opinion. So I would like to suggest that we check that passion and reserve it in the interest of the students that we are here to benefit. And whenever there are disagreements, emotions run high. But I think we need to reevaluate why we're here this evening. We are here because we live in a country that we have the ability to share with one another when we disagree. And in the end, the elected officials in this community will make their absolute best decision moving forward on numerous issues that are not going to be agreed upon by everyone. And I think that we need to value everyone, regardless of what side of the district they live on or what region in the district they live in, because we are one school district. I'm the superintendent of the Boyertown Area School District. I lead this school district, and this school district happens to represent 2 distinct counties, but we are one district. When I go to watch the football game tomorrow night, I'm not picking out which kids live in which county. I'm there to support all of them equally.
Mr. Elsie.
Yes, to Mrs. Usavich and the committee, I'd like to thank you for the extremely detailed and thorough analysis. It's helpful in order to make an accurate decision. I guess just a question and maybe some thoughts. And I think I asked this before. If I remember, the answer was yes. Could a candidate run for both a at-large seat and a seat in the region?
Yes, we asked that question. There's nothing stopping a candidate for running for more than one seat of any position in the United States at the same time.
Okay, just trying to make sure I get the full picture. Yeah, clearly change is difficult, and this is a lot of change. I guess just some thoughts. Mark Travinsky, I believe his name is, he had submitted 2 proposals that certainly I think would be worth looking at. I know one of the considerations of the committee was to minimize, I think it was up there, minimize voter confusion or something to that effect, correct? So clearly, going to an at-large election, if this were to move forward, is a big change, for sure. And I don't know if totally changing the regions, and I didn't see his full proposal, I don't know if that would be any more larger of a change than, if we did this hybrid model. So I just want to throw that out there. It's one change versus one change now and then change again in 5 years or whatever. The other thing that intrigues me, if I remember my American history lesson, as our founding fathers were putting together the Constitution, and I'm trying to remember how it went and who the person was, but as I recall, the reason we ended up with a House of Representatives in Washington and a Senate was for equal representation based on population. So that was actually, if you study American history, that was a hybrid model that our founding fathers came up with. Because as I recall, they wanted to, I'm trying to remember, maybe someone in the education system can remind me.
Party.
It was, I believe it was 2 from each state, and it was like, well, wait a minute, one state is more populous than another, that won't be equal representation. Or something to that effect. So if you take a look at that, so that's why the hybrid model really intrigues me. If you want the simplest piece, because having gone through the election 2 years ago, I will say the regions was very confusing for voters. So as I was out there talking to people, besides myself being a little confused, honestly, I think it was confusing for voters. So quite candidly, I just throw out there, if we're looking for what's easiest for voters, an at-large is as easy as it gets. There's 5 seats and I vote for 5 people. Or there's 4 seats and I vote for 4 people. So again, just looking at your criteria. So I just throw that out there for thought. I guess that's it. I really appreciate it. I have a lot to think about, as I hope we all do, and talk to some folks and all, but I think it's worth to proceed and deliberate on this. Thank you.
So I think I'll ask Dr. Bailey to summarize, but great job.
I will do my best. Jill spoke first, and her comments included that she was part of the first committee and was strongly in favor of an at-large process. She recommended 3 at-large and 2 reps from each region as being the best thing for the community, and that was to offer a hybrid model. Reasons were the reasons were that we are one school district and we make decisions that are in the best, keep the students' best interests in mind. 2, a school district and region is different than a legislative district. There's one thing that separates every single board member is voting in the best interest of the district. The point of the board is for the interest of all students. We are not competing against each other. Third, we encourage the community unity. The model does contribute to that. Fairness is important to all 100 square miles. Also, fairness is important to all. Financial resources could create a fairness issue. People represent the whole entire district. Voters have done a good job of doing that. You don't have to spend your own money in a campaign process, that you can have committees that can raise dollars if there are concerns about finances. And to sum it up, fairness in the best model is the at-large hybrid model. Ruth spoke about the process of natural selection and how that will occur. Districts at large have people on the board in other areas. She has provided data and detailed backup. Running for an election in 97 square miles, 100 square miles, will create a situation of how many people do you know in other townships. It's best to know something about the person. Committees can create outside influences on potential candidates. You can't do a school board, running for school board on a shoestring budget, and more well-to-do people will run. She made some comments about the senior population not being on the internet. Looks at Berks County. There is, she did some looking into Berks County, and there's not one district in excess of 60 square miles that have at-large representation. New Hanover and Douglas Montgomery have the largest population. We do not need to reinvent Montgomery County Champagne taste. John Matthew commented that he ran at his own expense with no backing from committees. That sometimes if people are going to rely on others to support them in their campaigns, that they have to consider their other people's interests. He's against at-large representation. How can we expect at-large financing to cover 100 square miles unless we can spread the wealth? And he's against the additional burden to the citizens who may choose to run. Andrew commented that, excuse me, I apologize. He is against the current proposal. The election process doesn't create unity, it creates winners and losers. Unity comes from working together. The system as it is a good check and balance. Most agree that large representation is a detriment to a minority group. This usually involves a racial component. The minority that he is speaking to is a senior citizen, and the fact that those senior citizens have less children than those in Montgomery County. At-large position electorate is more persuaded to add programming in their own best interest and not in the best interest of the community. Last point is that you can vote for anyone you wish. Great if you are in the majority and not if you are in the minority. And the representation on the board will come from Montgomery County. Linda commented that she has attended all the committee meetings. She was part of establishing the criteria. She's against the proposal and does not feel that the proposal supports some very important criteria. I'm trying to decipher this part of my notes. The candidate's not discouraged. 100 square miles, impossible to fund for myself in an at-large model. I'm not a proponent of beholding to special interests. Encourage candidates from one county. What happens about school closure if one county is versus the other? I hope we reconsider based on projections. We can't keep moving precincts back and forth. And in less than 7 years, we will re-examine census data, and the current percentages do not warrant. I wish the presentation was online sooner, and didn't see the presentation on the website until recently. Didn't have the 2017 data on it as of today.
Just a handout.
I didn't recall if you had said about my other point regarding the community. Well, the candidates known by all voters and it's right on the presentation. Community feels close constituency relationship, and I felt that that would not occur.
Okay, and that's the sentence I wasn't able to decipher, and now that you've clarified it, close constituency representation.
Right, and the other one is candidates known by all voters.
And the candidates known by all voters. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I was typing as fast as I could, I promise. Tara responded that she asked that the board keep in mind private sector workers are shrinking, public sector workers are growing. Public sector workers come out of, public sector workers' compensations come out of private sector workers. We are affected greatly by board decisions. Whatever the decision is, she asks that we please keep in mind these issues, that the tax base comes from the private sector and that is decreasing. Standards of living are decreasing. Hers personally has decreased. Her husband's pay is shrinking in reference to the multiple things that are being taken in terms of taxation. Please consider that population of people. Janet talked about the fact that she lives across the street from the high school, that we moved into a $55 million project too fast, and we don't need something like this taken away. Don't fix what isn't broken. Chris talked about a letter from Coburnville Township, and they would like things to stay the way they are. Running for the school board, representing the region but voting for all children. She is representing Berks County. Berks County needs to have a right to say, and they want representation from those in Berks County. Therefore, every child in the district, running for the people in that region. She works at a nice place, and work is not as frequent as it used to be. More people in the community that aren't receiving the salaries that they used to. Keep things the way they are. We have spent $24,000 in legal fees during the previous year, from August through February on this case. And as of May 14th of this year, we have also spent money on legal fees. We are not here for each other, we are here for the students. Larry talked about, he concurred with Mrs. Denon's comments that they were all good points. He had heard in the room when they were discussing models in the committee meeting not discussing regions/counties. We are there supporting kids. The notions of regions create distinction that is not really there. Concerned about some of the comments that he had heard this evening. We are all supposed to be supporting a democratic process. That's how a democracy works. Ruth commented again that we are a constitutional republic and the democracy rules is mob rules. More income, more population. It's okay if a candidate is not pre-selected by socioeconomic status. It's not a laughing matter. It's not a laughing matter to not have local representation. Voted for locally. Chance to get to know and judge the character of those you are voting for. Ruth, Mrs. Duroff made some comments about flipping the two regions and the mathematics being equal. And had some concerns about why we were flipping the numbers. I think I captured, I think that's it. So is there anything that I've stated that needs to be amended? I did my best to try to capture what you said.
The only thing that I would mention is I said 60-some square miles up there, just so that you don't think I fudged the numbers that I gave you earlier this year.
I will note that, thank you.
So I think I heard some themes in there, and I'll try to reply, and I'll also ask Mr. Crossley and Mrs. Hartford to comment too if I miss anything. I wanted to address the questions and concerns around the legal expense. The data provided by Ms. Baker regarding the county disparities and the other school districts with at-large student focus, some of the economic considerations.
Can't hear you.
And the
Turn your-
campaign dollars. Okay, don't worry, I'll hit all those topics I just said. So thank you. So with respect to campaign dollars, I just did want to comment a little bit on some of my personal observations there regarding running regionally or running at large. One of the observations that I've made is that there are a lot of free opportunities for campaigning that many board members don't, many board candidates don't take advantage of, and so there is more opportunity than is currently used. And those are, for example, the League of Women Voters has a website where you can send in your bio and you can link to whatever information you have. The newspapers, our local newspapers offer free candidate bios that you can send in information about yourself so that the voters can get to know you. And in the past, not this year so far, but in 2011, I believe, and 2009, there were candidate forums. And many candidates opted not to even participate in that. And that was an opportunity to get right in front of the people who are going to get out there and vote. So I just wanted to make those points, that campaigning can be done in a smart way without necessarily expending a lot of funds or asking other people for a lot of funds. I wanted to thank Mr. Economopoulos and Ms. Renninger for sharing some of the economic aspects and considerations. And Mr. Economopoulos, I also never met you, but I know that you volunteer your time in our schools, and I wanted to thank you for that. I wanted to thank everyone, really, because as Mrs. Renninger pointed out, it's not easy to get up there and stand in front of the microphone. So just wanted to acknowledge everyone who spoke. But I wanted to thank Mrs. Denon and Mr. Farmer for kind of bringing the focus back to the students. It is true that even though in our region, we're elected by the people in our regions today, but we represent our entire community. And I've asked that from like a legal perspective, and yes, we as board members represent the entire community. So to me, that's a little bit of a disparity when you're elected by a part but represent the whole. And the legal fees, I believe the numbers you provided are correct. We spent about 3 times the amount of money that we had anticipated spending because of the intervening process. And I'm really disappointed that that went that way, because I think this committee put a lot of thought into how to get community input. We thought of every way. When we announced our meetings, we encouraged the other board members to let people know about our meetings. We encouraged people in the audience who cared about the topic to let other people know about the meetings. And of all the people who ever came out, only 2 people were in opposition to the hybrid or the at-large. So it's just disappointing to me. And then there were 2 interveners, one who did participate and one who didn't participate, that caused our legal fees to be tripled. And I just wanted to make that point. Maybe it's a fault of ours, maybe there was something more we could have done, I can't think of it. And I'm glad that you're here tonight, but I wish you were here before. And then finally, I wanted to thank Ms. Baker for the data that she provided, and it was very helpful for me, I'll have to say. One of the things that stuck out for me when I looked at the other school districts and the disparity among the per capita income and the populations of their municipalities, I realized that as diverse as we say we are, we're not. The difference in per capita income between our 2 counties, if you look at it by county, is relatively small. But if you look at the municipality data, the highest per capita income is from Bechtelsville, and the second is from Earl. Those are Region 1. So there's a real mix. It's not that Montgomery County has the highest. It's very mixed. It goes back and forth. So I just wanted to point that out. And so I really hadn't looked at those numbers from that perspective before. So, and the other thing was looking at the school districts with at-large. I believe that some of the data that you show does support what you say, but there are other examples that don't support what you say. And looking only at Berks and looking only at this particular point in time really is a very small sample size to draw conclusions from. And I just wanted to make that point. And let me see if I had anything else on that. The other thing is you show a lot of the points in here are that the per capita income, that people with the at-large tend to, when you have an at-large, the people elected tend to come from the more populous and more wealthy areas. First of all, with the more populous, if you have a region model in place and the population is equal among your regions, then it's going to force people to come from your more populous areas, and it will limit the ability of the less populous areas to have much representation. I'm losing my train of thought here. I think that was it. So did I miss? Let me ask Mr. Crossy if he wanted to add anything.
What's that?
I don't know.
I have a couple comments. You know, I've gone through the process, the at-large versus the regional. I have no objection to each of them alone. However, I believe because of the cultural difference in our 100 square mile area, we need regional representation. I can give an example to school districts in Berks County that have agricultural programs. We don't need them, but they do. And that's where the cultural change will come in. It gives you the programs that suit your community. And if you have everybody coming from the one area, the one part of our district may be neglected as far as programs are concerned. The other thing I noticed, that many of the comments tonight we're talking about a hybrid program, but a lot of comments were not on the hybrid program. They were talking about membership at large 100%. Because if you get 9 people out here, you can't do that if you're a hybrid program. And there's several other things that came up, comments that were made that led me to believe that they were addressing the at large 100%. So it is a true statement, and if that was your feeling, I'd ask you to reconsider. Thank you.
And Mrs. Hartford, any further comments from you?
I think you did an excellent job of summarizing it, and I think basically the committee itself and the public through the whole process has been part and parcel in the recommendations, and I would suggest that we move forward again.
Okay, and that was my next thing to make sure that we as a committee want to move forward on the recommendation for the hybrid.
Ruth has something to say.
Okay, I'll get to public comment.
Are you doing that after you decide to do what you've been doing?
Well, we are, but I'll let you, did you want to respond to something?
May I mention that we did not cause you 3 times the amount of cost. The Reading Eagle explicitly said 24 grand was spent, of which 9 grand was related to the court action. So I respectfully think that is really a besmirchment of what happened. I explained to you I could not come to your meetings. I tried to find out what was happening. Pretty much every meeting, the game changed, I must honestly tell you, and in specific, the October 17th versus 24th meetings, if I'm not mistaken, the first meeting, you had a totally different set of criteria being the primary criteria from what they became in the second meeting. This second meeting, where you had 13 people from the public there that weren't on the committee, you served refreshments. So you had to expect there were going to be people coming there that would support your position because you had 1 to 3 people at any of the other meetings from the public. And what gets me, when I look to see who was at the meetings, the same folks, with some exceptions, that signed the 1995 petition to do a fully at-large school district, including some of our board members, one of whom told the Reading Eagle that she was somewhat mixed of feelings about the hybrid model, but that same board member signed the 95 petition. So when I saw how the deck was stacked there, quite honestly, it's no surprise what you came up with as a recommendation in the end.
With all due respect, I must reply to that. First of all, the game did not change. Meeting 1, we laid out the steps. We followed those steps. Meeting 1 and 2, we started and finished that list of criteria. Yes, it changed, but nothing was removed. Everything that anyone said was on that list. And the group of 16, which also include all the people that came to the first meeting, was how we prioritized it. Second of all, the deck was not stacked. If someone once before signed a petition and 20 years later they say they're mixed, is there something wrong with having an open mind? I think that we as the board members came to this table with open minds and we listened to what we heard, and what we're saying today is exactly what we heard. And excuse me for getting upset, but I put a lot of time and energy into thinking about how that could be true. And that is exactly what we implemented. Thank you. So now I'm going to go forward with, okay, go ahead.
I want to address this. I want to address this to you, Ruth.
Please.
Do you still believe today the same as you did 15 years ago? Or do you change some?
pretty much the same. May I mention, I still want frugality and strong academics.
Oh, yeah, but did you change it any other way? Or do you still believe everything the way it was 15 years ago? I
I
doubt
don't
it.
think I've changed much. In fact, some of my friends tell me I am the only reliably consistent person they know, if I may respectfully tell you that.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Crossley, do you still want to take this recommendation for the hybrid model to the board next week?
Yes, I think it's the right way to go.
And Mrs. Hartford, I think I heard you say yes, but please confirm.
Yes, I concur.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our agenda item number 6. Our next steps would be to get this on the board agenda. I think we're ready for next week.
Hello, somebody's got their hand up over there.
Mrs. Darrow.
I just want to make sure you didn't say it the second time. The first time you took that, do you want to do this and that? You said you were going to look at the charts that Mr. Dravinsky gave to you. So you said providing that didn't change your mind or something, so now you're not saying that. Are you going to, what is your feeling now?
His charts don't pertain to the hybrid model. So for the hybrid model, I think we just said we reconfirmed. For the regional model, we will, as Dr. Fadley said, he will summarize this so that all the board gets a chance to look at this. And by the time prior to the board meeting, that's why I wanted to confirm the timing, so that we all get a chance to look at that, so that when we vote, we have had a chance to digest this. Yes?
And I ask one more thing.
Sure.
So many numbers and peppers and everything were flaring up. And, you know, this many people went to a meeting, that many people went to a meeting. There's also was a lot of registered voters signed petitions not to do this. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that too. I think there was over 600.
Thank you. There was a petition that, that described the one side of the story. I read that petition. If I hadn't come to these board meetings, I might have signed that petition, because it's hard to understand this stuff if you haven't been a part of the process. And the way they were written, it was a little bit slanted. Okay, so I'm going to move on again. Oh, I'm sorry, Joe.
A question, Donna, do we have a copy of that petition? That reference?
I can get a copy.
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
You want it?
I would like to have it for a record.
okay.
You want it? I have it here.
I don't want it
Oh, we
personally, I
have it.
want it in the record.
I'll ask Dr. Bailey to distribute what I have to the board. Okay. Next steps. Is it feasible to have this on the board agenda next week? Dr. Bailey, I'll look to you.
If the wish of the committee is for us to be ready for September 10th, I will work to make sure that the information that was received is shared with the board in their Friday newsletter, so that they can have time for consideration of this Mr. Travinsky's information, as well as working with my cabinet staff to make sure that the agenda item represents the wishes of the committee.
Thank you. Okay, just let me ask one question as follow-up. So does everybody think that would give them enough time to digest that if we get it on Friday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes?
My question is, would that proposal, that new proposal, impact the board member, sitting board members?
I can't tell yet.
Well, if we're going to look at that, then, okay.
Well, by the time it goes through court, they won't be sitting anymore. So it won't matter.
May not. All right, so I think we have our next steps in place, and we'll open it up for any public comment at this point, no specific topic. We're tired, we're all tired. Yes, please.
Okay, I think I've seen about 30 people here tonight, and from the last time I'm hearing that because of the majority was to go this way, well, it looks to me like the majority of the people here tonight are saying they don't want this. And why are we rushing this? We have 3 months and 5 new people are coming on this board. Why can we not wait till those 5 new people come on and make the decision then, especially if there's going to be court costs and legal fees again? It seems like, you know, you just want to rush right into this so it gets done, and then the 5 new people that are coming on are going to be responsible for this. I think we need to wait and hold back a little bit here. Don't rush into something like we did with the high school project, and now we're trying to do it again, and we don't know what fees are coming back from that yet. So we want to incur more fees? This is money we could be using towards the kids' education. Let's sit back and think about this and wait for those 5 new people to come on this board and see what their opinions are.
Okay, I'll reply to that. I think we have given it a lot of thought. I don't think we're rushing it. We've been talking about this since 2011. We have done a very thorough analysis. And I have thought about that. My initial feeling was that this is what this committee was charged with and we should finish that job. And the board has asked us to do that. Even if we waited, when I looked at the people who voted for this and who will still be on the board, and the people who participated in our committee who are likely to be on the board, I am quite confident that it would not make a difference in terms of a board vote. Any other public comment? Public comment? Yes, go ahead.
One thing that we have not gotten to is implementation. Who will be the person necklisted and designated to be the at-large person from some region? Likewise, if you do run for multiple positions, let's say you win both, who decides who is going to be the at-large versus the other candidate? Will it be the board majority? Will we then have no local say because it'll be taken out of our hands? Will candidates run for both at-large and regional because they want to make sure they have the maximum options? Those are things that I don't think have been thought through, or at least I have not seen anything in the minutes about them, nor have I heard any discussion about it. And I think before you do a step like this, really you should know how the mechanics will work, and people need to know who's going to be given the designated headgear that they're the person who's supposed to be the at-large slot out of the region.
As a matter of fact, all right, I'll let you finish.
Secondly, a sample size of 12 is good enough for statistics. We have 19 districts in Berks. Likewise, the comments that were made tonight were not for a full at-large. They related to the fact that if you have 3 at-large and 2 regional, you control the board majority if they happen to come from the same area. There's nothing bizarre about that, that's just the facts. The other thing that I would mention that hasn't been considered, and oh, by the way, Borough Township residents were not the majority on that petition. We were about 162 registered voters, which is about a little less than what turned out in the primary this spring, by the way. But we were not the majority. There were 621 or so registered voters on that petition. That is a lot of people who wanted to keep local elections. And make no mistake, when I went to talk to people, they asked, why are they doing this? I said, they say that it will give us a more unified board. And I said, but what I'm concerned about is that we will end up having representation from the most affluent, most populous areas of the district, and that is what the data show. Thank you.
I can comment on the items that we haven't already commented on. We did spend time in committee talking about the transition and the mechanics of that transition and asking some good questions about that. No one gets booted from their position, because when you run for board, even if you're rerunning, let's say there's 2 positions up in your region, you're not connected to one of them. It's just 2 people or however many people running for 2 positions, and the top 2 voters get those. So nobody gets booted from their position. In terms of who What happens if somebody decides to run for an at-large and a regional seat and they win both? There's very clear laws about that. What happens is the person gets to, I hope I can remember this now. The person gets to choose which one they want to accept, and then the board does an appointment to the vacant one.
There we go.
It's the battle.
Amen.
No.
Any other public comment?
Yeah, I'm sorry to prolong it. I've been in meetings, I've been in school meetings as well, so I understand. What, I guess, it seemed like it was a fait accompli, in which we just organized ourselves, expressed our concerns, and then there was a vote. That appeared to be already the writing was on the wall. And so, I guess, I understand you guys have been working on the project for over a year, and so when any group works hard, and I know you've worked hard, and I know you did due diligence, but I really sense, not looking from an outside person, that there was an initial agenda of wanting to get an outcome that you desire. Now, I know you did some modifications along the way, but there was certainly, I believe, a goal at the end. The reason why I'm saying this is because Gwen, I think, is it Gwen? Clearly said that, you know, Boyertown has one of the best operating school districts in the area, right? And so why do we want to change a board, which maybe that would change? I mean, it seems to me if school board unity is really the reason for doing this proposal, maybe we should get different people on the board, not change the representation system, because I'm not speaking at anyone in particular, because I'm not at board meetings. You know, I don't know what goes on in board meetings. But apparently, there must have been a genesis from somewhere to say we want something changed, in which it appeared that there was nothing needed to be changed. And your reasons for doing the change, and hey, I love change. I mean, my wife hates it. I love it. There must have been a reason for the motivation to change it. And my motivation for changing it, if it's a school board unity, I think that in itself explains why we're moving to an at-large, which certainly you can get more people on the board who may be like-minded, and you have more unity. And that's it. Now, obviously, the unity is one direction. And I think, actually, as opposed to being a democratic process, representative process gives at least more checks and balances. Thank you for your
Thank you. I do appreciate your comments. One clarification, we're not suggesting an at-large, we're suggesting a hybrid, but.
Well,
I know.
But the point is, it makes really no difference. Because if you have 3 at-large, the at-large puts minority people at a disadvantage.
Yep.
And that at-large then moves to the majority grouping, whichever they may be, and so you swing the vote on the board to the majority. So it makes no difference if it's all 9 at-large. You just need enough of the board to swing the vote, right?
Understood.
And so it makes no difference whether it's all at-large or not.
Yeah. And I also wanted to comment on the impetus for us to even take this on.
I'd love to hear that.
We have been hearing sentiment since way before I was on the board about people wanting to move to an at-large for various reasons, much of it coming from people in Berks County. And so we listened and we listened over all these years, and then when we started thinking about equalizing, we said, well, while we're thinking about equalizing, let's think about the whole, yeah.
I can understand.
Okay, so that was the thinking behind that.
I'm sorry, but I have to respond to that. You said you were listening to all these people all this time, and then where were those people when you had your meetings? You knew who they were. Where were all those people then? They didn't come out to the meetings and support you. 11 people? You listened to all these people and there was 11?
Where are they tonight?
No, it doesn't matter where they are now, but I mean, you did all this for 11 people or 22 people?
Can I? One more public comment I'll take. Mrs. Moska, if you don't mind.
No problem.
Okay.
My name is Mara Janolavich. I lived in Colebrookdale Township for 42 years. I've been very active in this community and active, as you know, in this school district. I've never seen your face around. I've hardly ever I've seen Gwen because Gwen was with the IU. I've never seen you around town. I've never seen you volunteering anywhere. What makes 3 people decide how to spend our money? When I pay my $6,000 in taxes, I pay for the Montgomery County people and I pay for the Berks County people. So why is Montgomery County so insulted?
Yeah.
You people have rocks for brains. There's a lot going on in this country. We don't need this on top of it. Us taxpayers don't want this $55 million building. You're going ahead with it. You had petitions. Colebrookdale. Ruth, didn't you get a petition from Colebrookdale Township?
Yep, I presented it tonight.
That represents about 1,800 taxpayers. You people want to go ahead with this. What are you, nuts? You're going to have all the commissioners from every township here. Pardon me?
Please keep your comments respectful.
I'm trying to be respectful. I'm not cursing. I'm stating the facts.
But go ahead. Rocks for brains isn't a fact.
I beg your pardon?
That's not a factual statement.
You're saying I have rocks for brains?
No, that's what you said.
I said, did I say that? I'll trust Rob. Did I say that, Rob?
Okay. Thank you for your.
Well, this is very lengthy and it's not necessary. Our nation's gone to war. You people want a $55 million building. You want this at large now. The citizens don't need this. Amen.
Thank you very much for your comment. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Scott.
What is the possibility of
This is it,
putting
last
this
comment.
on the ballot and letting the people vote for it?
Yes.
Why can't we do that?
Amen.
There's 2 ways per PA school code to do this.
Okay.
One is for the school board, and it's not the 3 board members that are making the decision. It's us making a recommendation to the entire board, who's elected by all of you to make a decision, and then going to the Berks County Court to let them make the final decision.
So we could go there and we can ask them to put it on the ballot?
There is a way for the public to also make a petition, which has been done in the past. And it didn't pass, but you are, as the public community, you are welcome to do that.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to look at my agenda and call for adjournment. Oh, Ruth, if you feel you must. Go ahead.
Adjournment.
Okay, thank you. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming.